Jesus said, "Man cannot live on bread alone, but from every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." You're listening to Daily Truth.
What's the number one word used by Jesus to describe the religious rulers of his day? Hypocrite. Now, this is where evangelicals will lose their mind, okay? So just, trigger warning. It's going to be hard for some of you. The number one word that Jesus uses to describe the religious rulers of his day is not legalism. He doesn't say, "You legalist, you tell people that obedience in every realm of life is something that God requires." Jesus never contests that concept. He never says, "They're legalists that tell people they need to work hard to seek to be obedient to God." That's not Jesus' beef with the Pharisees. His beef is, "You hypocrites." Meaning what? What is the logical conclusion? What's the simple implication of that statement? It means the Pharisees' teaching, sometimes it's strange and diverse, sometimes it's off, but a lot of times it's right. And the problem with the Pharisees is not that they tell people that obedience matters. The problem with the Pharisees is that they tell people obedience matters, but personally, they don't do it. They don't obey. Now think of the average evangelical today. What do they think when they think, who's the bad guy? Who's the bad guy? Well, the bad guy is the Pharisee. And well, that's true. They were the bad guys. But then the question is, what was the quintessential characteristic and mark of a Pharisee? Well, ask the average evangelical and they'll say, well, the mark of a Pharisee is that they cared about obedience. The mark of a Pharisee is that they said God had a law and that people should follow it. That's mean. No, the mark of a Pharisee is that about 90% of the time their teaching was true. The problem is that they were hypocrites and did not actually follow their own doctrine. I mean, Jesus even says when it comes to tithing, think about this for a second. Jesus says, you have heard the Pharisees, they tithe down to 10% of their dill and spice, right? So that the Pharisees and scribes, they're taking their spices in their spice cabinet. They're taking cumin. They're taking paprika, and they're drawing out lines on the counter and measuring it with a ruler and cutting off 10% and bringing it to the synagogue. And you expect Jesus is going to say, isn't that legalistic? Doesn't say that. He says, but they've neglected the weightier matters of justice and mercy. And then Jesus literally says, you should do the former. That thing isn't legalistic. They're actually right. And you should do it too. But don't be like the Pharisees and do the other stuff also. So do this little thing. Jesus doesn't say this is a little thing and it doesn't matter. And God's law is really up for grabs and it's subjective in its interpretation and, to each his own. Just follow Jesus and whatever you think God might be leading you to do, and it's just live your truth, man. Said Jesus, never. That's not what he says. He says this seemingly little thing, he doesn't condemn it. He says, you should do this little thing too. But don't you dare do a little thing at the expense of the big thing.